whatever I do, I have a method and a madness in my method, or a method in my madness. With me.
Woo-hoo.
And one of the things that you have to learn is that whatever comes out of AEC, and everybody look at me, you've got to apply it to your life. And I'm really encouraging it, because this is out of the box and it's off the schedule, that you listen to it. That includes my team. Okay. Now, just listen to the prompts. Very far away, there lived a nobody in the land of familiar, named Ordinary. Every day was the same old thing. He went to his usual job, ate the same dinner, sat in his usual recliner, and watched the box.
She said, watch the box, not be in the box.
Every day I gotta do it. Every day.
Best friend would come sometimes to watch the box with him. Sometimes he would go to his mother and his father's house to watch the box. Ordinary had this little nagging feeling that something big was missing from his life. The little feeling grew and the little feeling grew, but it was unusual for nobodies to expect the unexpected. One morning he woke up with the words echoing in his mind. What you're missing, you already have. He looked and looked, and in a small part of his heart lay a big dream. The big dream told him that he, a nobody, was made to be a somebody. He, a nobody, was made to be a somebody and destined to achieve great things, and destined to achieve great things. Ordinary then discovered a long white feather. Did the dream giver leave it?
The dream giver.
He had heard of other nobodies having been visited by the dream giver. He rushed to get dressed and couldn't wait to get to his usual job to tell his best friend about the dream. Ordinary realized that he had a problem. His big dream was too big for a nobody like Ordinary. How could he tell about his dream? The other nobodies would laugh. As soon as he saw his best friend, he told his best friend about his dream. Best friend told him not to tell anyone, that the other nobodies would think that he was a fool. Ordinary kept his dream silent. Day after day, Ordinary showed up at his usual job, but he always thought about his dream. How could Ordinary ever leave familiar? He had payments, he had expenses, he had bills, he had all this. He felt stuck. He felt stuck.
Stuck, Dustin.
He began to hate his job. He began to doubt the dream and began to be sad his father that he was growing sadder every day. Ordinary told of his dream and the dream giver. He told his father the name of the dream and that he was to achieve great things. His father stated that he too had had a white feather, and he too had dreamed, but he never took up on the dream. His father asked him, "Did you find a white feather too?" Ordinary wanted to know how he knew. His father stated, "I had a white feather a long time ago, and the dream giver had left a feather for him. He had kept the feather in his windowsill and never did anything with the dream. He never pursued it, and the feather turned to dust." His father encouraged him not to make the same mistake he had made. When Ordinary went to his room, he picked up his feather and turned it over and over and over. Maybe every nobody was given a dream. He would find a way. He would find a way. He would find a way to pursue his dream. At his usual work, Ordinary told the nobodies, that he was going to pursue his dream. The nobodies began to discourage him, telling that the nobodies who pursue dreams have to leave familiar, and you'll never be able to leave familiar and leave their comfortable area. He decided he was going to leave his usual job and his recliner and his box. The next morning, Ordinary packed a suitcase with his usual stuff. He was walking away from the comfortable. Ordinary knew that the farther he walked away from the comfortable, the more uncomfortable he would be. The more that he walked away from the comfortable, the more uncomfortable he would be. So nobodies turned and went back to familiar. Ordinary dreamed of the great things he would accomplish. As he journeyed, he began to realize that to do what he most loved, he would have to do what he most dreaded. He realized that he would have to do what he most dreaded to do what he most loved. Ordinary's mood went from edgy to anxious. Then the doubts came. What if? What if? What if? He was leaving the comfort zone and coming into borderland. Sweat poured from his head, and he hit an invisible wall of fear. I need Kelly and Pat right now. Right now. Come here. Okay. He's leaving his familiar place, the ordinary place, that which is comfortable. He's in an uncomfortable position, but he has moved out. And the first thing that he has to do is to break through the fear wall, the fear wall, the fear wall, the fear wall. The dream giver told him that he had made him do this and that she would help him in any way. Ordinary doubted he was able to do this. He looked back, remembering all his comforts, the TV, the recliner, the box. He picked up his suitcase and took one step back. One step back. Because I am afraid. Leaving familiar feels too scary and too risky. If I was supposed to do this, I wouldn't feel so scared. If I was supposed to do this, I wouldn't feel so scared. If I was supposed to do this, I wouldn't feel so scared. Leaving familiar is too scary. The dream giver stated that every nobody gets afraid. Every nobody gets afraid when they leave familiar. Ordinary turned around and took a big step forward. A big step forward. A big step forward. Wait a minute. He just left fear. He broke through the fear wall. He has depleted all the what ifs. And he is stepping forward, believing that he has purpose and that there is a dream that's going to come true. And he took the first step. Where is his woo-hooer?
Wow!
The wall of fear was behind him. Standing in the middle of borderland, the very first person to discourage him was the mother. Was the mother. Thank you, dream giver. Was the mother. That is a male.
Hey, Mom.
Now do it in a female voice. Oh, Artie! Say, oh, Artie! She told him that he couldn't go through, that it would kill him, that he would die. His mother was discouraging him from moving forward. Are you with me? That he would get hurt. He could die. As they walked across the borderland, they met up with Uncle, and best friend. Best friend. What happened to best friend?
She went to console the other dream.
Uncle continued to tell him that he couldn't succeed. He would go down in defeat. Ordinary had heard of border bullies, but he never imagined that the border bullies would be his family or people that he knew. Now his mother, best friend, and uncle stood before him, blocking the view of the bridge. This way. He's going this way, and you're standing in front of him. Come here, Uncle. Okay, I want you to see this. He's stepped out. He's gone through the wall of fear. He's deleted the what-ifs. And now, look who is keeping him from going forward. Best friend, uncle, mother, can't do it. You might die. You'll never make it. Ordinary heard a voice call him, and it was champion. Champion. Call his boy. Call his name. Ordinary. Ordinary asked Champion what Champion was doing there. Champion told him he needs help. He asked Champion if he had seen the bullies. Did you see the bullies? Champion stated that he could go across with a border buster. He could help break through the opposition. Champion stated that as Ordinary left familiar, that he shook up all the bullies, and each of them had something to lose if he went forward. Did you understand that? that if Ordinary went forward, it was going to affect best friend. It was going to affect mother. It was going to affect uncle. Champion encouraged Ordinary to hold fast to his dream. She told him to remember that while the bullies tried to block the way, it is important who you choose to please. It is important. As the three watched, he began to walk forward over the bridge, above the wide waters. When Ordinary began to walk over the bridge, the bullies became smaller and smaller. The bullies became smaller and smaller. When Ordinary went across the bridge, the champion had already provided a boat there. The provision was already made. You untied the boat and shoved off. As he rowed,
Ask you to forget a moment.
away from the border bullies,
We're on camera.
they become further and further away. Now you came to the wasteland, and miles of nothing, just wilderness. But he kept moving on. His skin burned, his feet ached, his bones hurt. He got hungry, and he opened his suitcase. But guess what? There was no food. Then Ordinary began to worry. 2 days later, he ran out of water. Y'all can go. But then he found a trickle of water coming down from some rocks and a desert fruit hanging from a nearby bush. The day came when Ordinary finally gave up. He decided not to move until the dream givers came. When the dream givers did not show up, Ordinary became angrier and angrier. Then a hot wind blew sand into Ordinary's eyes. The path to his big dream had disappeared. He began to cry and he shouted, "You are not a dream giver, you are a dream taker!" And he shouted, "They're not a dream giver, they're a dream taker."
Y'all are dream takers. Open.
And he dragged his suitcase and he considered his dream dead. And then he went to sleep. When he woke, he heard someone in the branch of the tree. It was Faith. Ordinary began to complain about just the trickle of water
There's not enough.
and just the fruit.
God, that's all the kind of fruit they got. Look.
But you know what? If it weren't for those things, you would be dead. Ordinary continued to complain about no guidance and the delays.
Nobody here. I'm tired.
All of it was a waste of time.
I've wasted my whole life fooling with this mess.
So Faith came and asked him, "What are you going to do now?" "What are you going to do now?"
I don't know. I'm just going to be miserable and complain and grind.
So Ordinary said, "Faith,
Faith,
how do I get back to familiar?
how do I get back to
I'm
familiar?
tired of this.
I'm tired of these talks.
Faith said that she was unable to lead him to go back.
See, I've got no faith. Faith is
And
dead.
Faith walked away.
Faith, what good?
Later, Ordinary regretted being so rude to Faith. He had felt a little hope when he had talked with Faith. He cried for Faith, but now she was nowhere in sight. He cried for
wish I had a little faith like I miss faith.
Later on that day, Ordinary looked at the trip through the wasteland in a different way. He had found enough food for the day. There was water to drink, a path to follow that had led him to faith. How could he have been so blind? Even the dream giver had been nowhere in sight. He had everything that he needed. But now his suitcase was empty, and he left his suitcase behind. One day, Ordinary met the dreamers, returning to familiar. The dreamers, the dreamers, the dreamers, not dream giver, the dreamers, the dreamers, the dreamers, the dreamers.
Who had the dream?
The dreamers.
I have a dream.
Not dream giver. No, okay.
It's all right. Okay.
Okay. So these are dreamers going back to familiar. After you have left your suitcase, after you've been angry, after you're tired, he listened to their sad story of what they had been through. They had crossed the wasteland and nearly entered the land of promise, but they encountered giants. They felt like grasshoppers next to the giants. Ordinary saw that they had stopped trusting the dream giver and were walking away from faith. He saw that this trip through the wasteland had not been a waste, but had only prepared him, had only prepared him, had only prepared him, had only prepared him for what lay ahead. He had to take the way of faith. He had to take the way of faith. One night, Ordinary dreamed of the dream giver, asking him to come to the sanctuary. He decided to follow the stream into the lush forest. He felt as if he was being invited. He climbed higher and higher, following the stream, until suddenly he entered into a level clearing filled with a bright light. He felt he had found the sanctuary, and he was in the presence of the dream giver.
Oh, wow.
Who was calling him to the water.
Let's go.
He slipped into the pool of the clearest water he had ever seen. When he left the pool, the last traces of the wasteland had been washed away. The last traces of the wasteland had been washed away. The dream giver's voice told Ordinary to come into the light. Ordinary pleaded that the dream giver would take away his darkness.
Oh, no.
And that the dream giver would give him the light. The dream giver beckoned him to come closer, and Ordinary did. He went deeper into the light. The further he went in, the more he felt alive with the dream giver. The dream giver encouraged him to come higher. Ordinary started climbing up the mountain, and he emerged at a summit. From the summit, he saw the land of promise. He saw it. I made it.
I made it.
My big dream is right over there.
Oh, I'm running.
The dream giver agreed
You will run with me.
and asked that Ordinary give him the dream. Take the dream back.
I got it.
Ordinary was confused and stated that he was the one that she was the one that had given him the dream, and now you're asking for it back?
He didn't give her.
Ordinary said, I can't and I won't.
Whoa!
Ordinary asked if he had to give it back. The dream giver stated that some choose not to.
Some choose not to.
Ordinary knew he could please the dream giver and surrender his dream, or he could keep his dream and risk losing the dream giver's pleasure.
We'll risk it. Are you willing to risk it over the dream? It will be okay.
Remember? He remembered champion. He remembered faith. He remembered the returning dreamers. He knew what he wanted to do. He wrote in his journal that he was surrendering his dream. Now you can use it. So he wrote in his journal that he was surrendering his dream to the dream giver, and he went down the mountain. He left his journal on the mountain because he now had no dream, no plan. He gave it up. But had great peace. He went swimming in the river, and when he got out of the river, there was his journal with an entry in it. Ordinary, I am giving back your dream. Now you can use it to serve me. Now you can achieve truly great things. Remember, I am with you always. Ordinary wept with joy. When he looked at his dream had grown and was not just about Ordinary, but now it was about others. Ordinary entered into the land valley that leads to the land of promise. And the sign he read, beware, dreamer, valley of giants. Ordinary saw that the giants were real. He had no weapons. He had no plan. But his dream was bigger than ever, and he trusted the dream giver. He pressed on, and he soon encountered a mighty being. Mighty being. Mighty being. Mighty being.
Mighty being. I'm the mighty being. I'm the giant of darkness. You have no chance against me. None.
And that nobody's had ever come this far.
Nobody has ever come this far. Who do you think you are? Coming this far. You should not be here. You can't get past me. There's no way. This is my great wall of darkness.
I am the commander,
I am the commander.
sent by the Dream Giver
Sit by the room.
to help you fight the giants.
To fight this thing here.
Ordinary, explain how small you kept in relation to the giants. And the commander told him that he was not to be afraid of the giants.
Don't be afraid of these giants.
Giants are real, they are enormous, and they will try to block your dreams. They will try to block your dreams. They will try to block your dreams. Help me.
They're huge, and they're gonna try to block your dreams.
You have no
Without
dream.
listening to that.
Good job.
No.
But if you believe in the Dream Giver and you're willing to take the risk, you will get past them.
I am the
Went on
great
to
darkness.
explain that the Dream Giver will give you instructions.
The dream will give you instructions.
Moneyless. So the first giant came. Don't look. The first giant came. And you know what it was? Right here. It was moneyless.
Boy, the truth.
Every giant was an opportunity for the Dream Giver to receive honor and glory. As Ordinary moved up the valley, he came across the giants. But then there was the wounded warrior. The wounded warrior told Ordinary that there were too many dying.
There's too many dying. Too many what? I don't know yet.
Ordinary encouraged the warrior to finish the dream.
Dream. Finish the dream. Dream on.
The wounded warrior grew weaker.
Oh, I'm dying.
He went on to explain that he had fought the giants. He had fought the moneyless.
I fought the giants. I fought the moneyless. They play dirty.
The warrior died.
No.
And Ordinary buried him. He realized that he was going, before him brought that the warrior, the wounded warrior had gone before him to make the way. And that he had to finish the wounded warrior's dream.
Too many have come before me, and I have survived. You think you're gonna do that?
Yes,
You
yes.
think you're gonna get past
Meaning have fallen, but I
Then there
will.
was corruption, a giant of corruption. Then there was rejection, a giant of rejection.
Oh,
You gotta, you gotta go through. The warrior has already been, the wounded warrior made the way. The wounded warrior already made the path. But the giants are trying to stop you.
That's my family. We have great power.
Okay.
Great power.
Ordinary came, Ordinary came to the city of anybody's
Uh-huh.
who did not believe in the Dream Giver. And the great giant of darkness oppressed the city. The Dream Giver gave the order. The Dream Giver gave the order. The Dream Giver gave the order. Prepare for battle. No. I want to hear it.
Prepare for battle.
I want to hear it.
Prepare for battle.
Yes, don't
Ordinary was about to challenge the giant of darkness.
All right.
Come.
In the name
Bring it
of
on.
the Dream Giver,
Bring it on.
Ordinary walked up to the gate and screamed, "Giant of darkness,
Giant of darkness.
in the name of of the dream giver,
In the name of the dream giver,
I come to defeat you.
I come to defeat you.
I proclaim deliverance
I proclaim deliverance
for everybody
for everybody
in the anybody camp
in the anybody camp
and anybody in the city.
and the sea.
Ordinary fought and fought and fought. And mid-afternoon, anybody could see that Ordinary was growing weaker. And the giant was as strong as ever. Ordinary asked the dream giver,
Dream giver, dream giver.
are you with me? Are you with
I need
me?
help.
It doesn't look good.
The battle's on.
The dream giver told him to prepare
That too.
for a miracle.
Prepare for a miracle.
No,
Prepare for a miracle.
she told him to lay down his weapons
Lay down your weapon.
and take only the feather. The feather. The feather.
Take only the feather.
And that Ordinary will bring great honor to the dream giver.
You will bring me great honor.
Ordinary was swept with unbelief. He remembered surrendering his dream and getting it back bigger and better. He remembered how the dream giver had helped him in the wasteland, even when there was nowhere to go. He remembered the dying of the wounded warrior. He remembered his big dream.
Yes.
Ordinary turned from the unbelief and decided to take a big risk for the dream giver. He put down his weapons. He pulled out his feather and walked toward the giant of darkness. The giant laughed. Ordinary raised his feather above his head and said, if the dream giver is for me,
If the dream giver is for me,
what giant can stand against me?
can stand against me?
Chains scattered. Chains scattered. Chains, here. Chains scattered. The giant laughed. One more time.
Boom.
Ordinary raised his feather and said, if the dream giver
If the dream giver
is for me,
is for me,
what giant
what giant
can stand against me?
can stand against me?
The giant collapsed. Really hard. The nobodies. The nobodies. They began to sing, the dream giver is good. Ordinary walked through the city of anybody's. Their needs were great and their hopes were few.
Ding
But
dong,
now-
witchy
Now,
dee.
dreamer, now let me show you more. There's much more of my dream waiting for you. Soon you will leave what is familiar once again, and I will be with you. But the dream giver, his dream was right there. Give it up. Okay, everybody look at me. Everybody look at me. So, how many, in all honesty, face giants in your life? Whether it be money, whether it be discouragement, whether it be an uncle, an aunt, a mother, a spouse. But I am a big believer. I mean, I believe this with all my heart, that there is not one person in this room that doesn't have a purpose. That you were created, everybody look at me, that you were created for a purpose. My purpose may be different from yours, but you're created for something. And along the path of trying to get through and reach out for that dream, that fear came, and the dream of Ordinary had to push through the wall of fear. Then Ordinary came where the family was discouraging him. And a lot of time it is our own family that's discouraging. Or our best friend. You can't do that. Remember what you did? And then you have to push through all these obstacles. One of the biggest one that made me impressed in the story is how he had to go through the wasteland where there was nothing. The dream giver wasn't there. There was no food. There was nothing. It was like a desert. Anybody been there? Can't hear God. Can't hear anybody. You feel that you're lost? Okay, in that, it's pressing through. Pressing through. Okay. And then he came to the darkness, but he had to rise up and believe in the dream giver, which is equal to what we believe in our God, right?
Right.
That God is the one that we have faith in. And so he had to come to the point that he knew he was bigger than the giants, that he was bigger than his unbelief, that he was bigger than his family's opinions, that he was bigger than his best friend's opinions, and that he was birthed for a purpose.